Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and today I'm going to give you guys my June wrap up. So for the month of June, I actually was able to get through 10 books. Some were kind of tiny, but I'm just going to start from the ones that I finished first at the like the beginning of June, and then I'm just going to go through each book consecutively that I finished like throughout the month. So bear with me. I've got adult books, I've got mystery books, I've got like middle grade novels, I've got YA novels, so I've got like a huge mix for my June wrap up. Let's get started because I've got a lot to talk about. First book that I finished in the month of June is called A Red Herring Without Mustard by Alan Bradley. This is the third book in the Flavia de Luce series. What's crazy is I found this in the adult section, but I honestly think it should be more a middle grade novel because it's coming from an 11-year-old girl, or maybe even YA a little bit. But anyways, I gave this book a 3-star. I'm rating it PG because there is a little bit of swearing, but nothing big. It's, like damn and hell or whatever. That's thrown in there just once or twice. And it's about an 11-year-old girl who just loves mystery, and she gets always sucked into like these murders that are happening in her town. And her town is kind of like one of those towns where you've got a little bit of everybody. You've got your grouchy people, you've got your like your British snob. Book in the series, I don't want to give much away, but what's nice about these is I don't think you have to read them in order. Like, you can read them out of chronological order of however he has written these. But this girl just loves anything to do with murder and death, and so she kind of takes it upon herself to try to mysteriously uncover these murders that seem to happen in her town every so often. And they're all so different from one another, but somehow Flavia always gets connected into these and sucked into them. And she's just funny, she's cute, she's quirky. But the reason why I gave this 3 stars is I feel like the plot points and the mysterious factors and the murders are always really amazing and such a fantastical just idea, but I feel like it's kind of a slow moving books so far. I'm gonna stick with the series because there's like 9 of them. I think there's 9, but at the same time, so I'm like meh. Like, it's good, it's cute if you're into like little YA mystery, quirky kind of character driven books, then this would definitely be up your alley. But for me, it was maybe a 3.5 book. Okay, second book of the month of June, I read Not If I Save You First by Allie Carter. This is my first Allie Carter book. I got this at my kids' Scholastic Book Fair. I believe it was in May, so just recently. I rated this a 3-star. It is rated PG. There's nothing crazy in it, but it's about this young girl, and she's about 16. She has actually grown up when she was younger in the White House. Her father is part of the head chief of Secret Service agents. Something terrible happens and her father forces her to move at a young age all the way up in Alaska, and she is pretty much been on her own other than with her father. So she is roughing it in the wilderness. They've got no cell service, they've got no TV, so the only thing that she has is writing letters to her best friend, and that is actually the president's son. But the president's son never wrote her back, so she starts to get this huge grudge. And suddenly, out of nowhere, when she's like 15, 16 years old, she realizes the president's son now must be hidden where she is at, and they must protect her, and craziness ensues. I felt like the relationship in it was quite predictable. I felt like the whole story and plot points were very predictable. It kept me going, it was intriguing, but at the same time I thought it was okay, so that's why I'm only giving it a 3-star. If I was a teenager reading this, I think I would be completely engulfed in this book, but it's definitely more for your younger age groups. Why? I don't know why it's considered YA. I would consider it almost middle grade, but that's just. Book number 3 that I read for the month is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and this was probably the most disappointing read I had for the entire month. I am giving this a 2-star. I am so bummed out that I gave it 2 stars. It was such a hyped book for me going into it. Not only has like the movie come out, but I mean, this book has been around for a couple of years and it has been so hyped that maybe the hype ruined it for me. I don't know. But I grew up in the 80s, so of course this book is derived around this kid who is in the future, like 20 years from now, and everything like is regular, normal, everyday world stuff, but this man has pretty much invented a virtual reality that people can just escape in. People lose their jobs and lose their families, and they just kind of become nobodies in the real world because they live and breathe for everything in this virtual reality world because they can be whoever they want. I don't know, this whole virtual reality world is based around the 1980s because the man that invented this game or this virtual reality is obsessed with the 1980s. So there is a lot of 1980 references in here, and it was very like arcade kind of driven stuff. And I grew up in the 80s. I was born in the 80s, so I got like 97% of all the things that were mentioned in here. But at the same time, it's just, maybe I'm not a gamer kind of book person. It kind of fell flat for me. I am rating this PG-13. There was quite a bit of language, big language. There was LGBT references as well. And then at the same time, there was a lot of sexual topics in here as well. So if you have a young kid that's wanting to get into this book, that's really into gaming and arcading, this is great, but I just want to give you some warnings that there are some sexual topics, there is LGBT references, and there was quite a bit of language. So, but at the same time, that is not what made me judge this book at all. This made me judge it because it just wasn't my type of book. I thought it was just so far-fetched and so, I don't know. I hated the 80s. I'm sorry. I grew up in the 80s, and I think like arcade games and Stretch Armstrong dolls and all those, like, yeah, I grew up with them, but I'm not obsessed with them. And it, you know, like Madonna was great, but like, I don't know. I'm just not a big 1980s kind of person, I guess. So I'm super bummed out. I'm giving this only a 2 star. Sorry. The next book I finished in the month of June is Magic by Angie Sage. This is the first book in the Septimus Heap series. I actually listened to this on audiobook with my 12-year-old. We really, really liked it. I'm giving it 4 stars, rating it G. This was such a whimsical book. You kind of get like that Harry Potter vibe, but at the same time, it's like starts off pretty dark, pretty mysterious, but whimsical at the same time. They have these weird creatures that are in it. Family that is pretty much trying to protect the princess who they have raised because she was orphaned and she was found by this family. Now, of course, there's an assassin trying to kill the princess, and so the Heap family is trying to save her. It just goes about that, and so it's about wizards and magic and creatures and adventures, and it was just cute and whimsical. It's definitely a middle grade novel. I can't wait to jump into the second one with my 12-year-old. We're loving it so far, and I give it 4 stars. Okay, because I've read, I feel like so many middle grade novels, like right off the bat, or just like young kid kind of character based books, even YA, I decided to jump in some like smutty novels, and I have been a huge fan of the Black Dagger Brotherhood series by J.R. Ward, and I have read every single book so far, the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. And there's like, what, 13, 14 books so far. Anyways, this is a spin-off series called The Black Dagger Legacy. This is book 1 called Blood Kiss. And what's great is you're still getting all the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, like all their characters and their mansion and where they're living at is all in this book. Like, so I'm so glad that we still get to see all these major badass vampire dudes that we have. If you're a Black Dagger Brotherhood, you know, crazy like me, you fall in love with these male characters and the people that they have fallen in love with and the women they fall in love with and the families and friendships that they have made. So this is actually a spin-off series, and it's like all new characters that they're kind of starting to bring in that are coming into training with the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, because there is so much controversy and so many bad things happening within this vampire clan, I guess you could say, that they're finally like, okay, we need some more fighters, we need some more warriors, and those that may have not been born into this family, we need to start bringing in some outsiders that are also vampires that can train and start protecting their families and so forth, because the evil out there is just getting so bad. So this is about a character, Paradise, who is in kind of like this, they're called Glymera families, but they're pretty much like your rich and snobby vampires. Like, they have servants and mansions and everyone works for them, and the women are just there to marry and have children and raise their children. And Paradise is like, no, I'm gonna go into this training and I want to fight. I don't want to be a prissy girl. I don't want to do what these Glymera women go in for and just have babies and marry, you know, rich vampires and blah, blah, blah. She is a vampire, but she decides she's going to start this training. And of course, there's always a love interest, and there's always insta love, sometimes not. And there's always smutty sex scenes, so it's definitely rated R. But oh my gosh, I loved this book. 5 stars. J.R. Ward, I love you, and I love your vampire series. Keep writing it, girl. I love it. Okay, after reading a steamy, smutty novel, I decided to pick up Stone Fox by John Reynolds Gardner, and this is definitely a classic. It's a very short children's book. My 9-year-old read this in his class last year, and so I've had it on my shelf forever, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm just gonna read it. I could read it in a day. It's like super tiny, super cute. I'm giving it 4 stars, rated G. This grandpa becomes depressed over something. You don't know what it is yet though. But he becomes depressed, and he has this grandson that lives with him, and the grandson is pretty much left on his own to fend for their farm and try to make ends meet, because his grandfather has become suddenly bedridden from depression. But this little boy is like trying to help his grandfather, and the story behind this is just, it's so cute. It's actually sad a little bit. It made me kind of tear up, but in a good way. It's like a good sad. So if you've got a young kid who's just wanting a quick read that's sweet yet very realistic in the sense, and it talks about depression, which was actually quite amazing to me in such a young book, you know. But anyways, I loved it. It was cute. I'm giving it 4 stars. Great. My next book in the month of June was another Michael Vey series. This is Michael Vey number 2, Rise of the Elgon by Richard Paul Evans. It's like a sequel to the first one that I did back in May. I'm not going to go much into it, but Michael and his clan of friends are pretty much like these superhero kids. They have the ability of electricity, but each one is very different in other ways. They are trying to go and find and save Michael's mother, who has been kidnapped, and it's about their journey. It's great. Like, I can't believe the journey all these kids decide to go on to save his mother. It was good. I gave this 4 stars. I rated it PG, only because it does have some slightly morbid death scenes in it that I'm like, you know, it's definitely not G-rated, but other than that, like, it's such a good book. Definitely pick it up. I can't wait to read book number 3 for July, and I'll just keep reading them until I'm done, because so far I'm loving Michael, and I love his Electra clan. The next book that I picked up in the month of June is The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. I decided to buddy read this with my younger sister, who's like 10 years younger than me, but she is so absorbed into like witch stuff, and she loves reading like witch books, like Wiccan and things like that. That's just her thing. That's her genre, and I love it. And so as soon as I heard about this book, I'm like, I need to buddy read it with my sister. I was gonna save it till October for more like Halloween time, but I'm so glad I picked it up. I'm giving it 4 stars. It's PG-13, and the only reason why I'm rating it PG-13 is because there are quite a few F words dropped in this thing. It is a YA novel. It is about these 3 sisters that like 200 years ago are just so beautiful and so magnetic that these men just, they love them. And so these girls are just so good at hooking their claws into these men, pretty much, whether they're married men or not. So suddenly they're dubbed witches in this town. And this town decides to get rid of these witches, and they drown them in the lake in the town Sparrow. Well, since then, there's been a curse on this town for 200 years that in the month of June, these three sisters come back, inhabit the bodies of young women, and then they woo and they weigh these young men out into the lake, and they drown the men. And there's never like a certain number. Sometimes there's less, sometimes there's more, and it's just, that's how Sparrow is. This is the story of a girl who lives in this town for her entire life. A mysterious boy shows up, some crazy things start happening, and then the story unfolds. I think I would have given this a higher rating, but I'm only going to give it 4 because I felt like I wanted more like murder, horror, angsty, morbid scenes, and I didn't really get that. It was actually more, it just wasn't as like scary, it just wasn't as witchy and morbid that I was hoping it would be. I know that sounds weird, but I don't know, I was hoping more witchcrafty stuff. But anyways, the story was great, it flowed perfectly, and it wasn't a bad read. I liked it. The next book, the second to last book that I read in the month of June, is The Darkest Hour by Caroline Tung Richmond. And this was such a good book, like better than I thought it was. It's another book fair scholastic book that I picked up my kids' book fair back in May. I'm giving this 4 stars. It is PG just because it is a little bit more, it's talking about like the Nazis and concentration camps, and the story that this girl has to go through is just so horrendous, and the things that she has to go to. But anyways, this is about a young girl who is new to this covert operation that is pretty much ran with nothing but teenage girls. And these teenage girls that are from like America or France or Britain are brought together as like a secret service almost, and their job is to infiltrate, just gain intel and information in the Nazis. And sometimes they get figured out, and some die, some get tortured. And so it's a story about the journey that she goes through as a new recruit, but at the same time she starts to figure out that there is a mole in their little covert operation, and so you don't know who to trust. This book was amazing, like 5 stars for me, because the whole time it was like I couldn't trust any character. I trusted her, but I couldn't trust anyone else. And so all the way through this entire book, I was just hooked. It is such an amazing novel. I highly recommend it. It was good, super good. The last book that I read in the month of June, book number 10, is The First 15 Lies of Harry August by Claire North. I actually read this on Audible, and I'm only giving this a 3.5 stars. I know a lot of people have loved this book, and I really was looking forward to it. And maybe it was because it was the Audible version and I should have just read it. I don't know. But just something for it just didn't... I'm rating it PG-13 because there were quite a few F words in it. Trigger warning, there is a lot of suicide in this as well. But it's about a man that every time he dies, he is born again in the exact same place, the exact same person. But by the time he hits childhood, he remembers his past lives. And so many a times he goes through these dark depressions. The last half of this book pretty much talks about his 4 last lives. The patience level that this man has to get revenge on someone that definitely deserves the revenge that he has it out for this man is astounding. Like, I think I would have gone freaking insane. Like, it was good, but I felt like some of the plot points, or there was just some plot holes that were just kind of needed to be fulfilled. Some things just didn't add up, and so that's why I'm giving it like a 3.5 star. It was definitely worth a read. The concept behind this is freaking amazing, but at the same time I was like, it's just not, I don't know, it just didn't roll for me. Sometimes maybe it's the hype. Maybe I should just go into these books completely blind and forget the hype. I don't know. But anyways, it's still worth a great read. But only 3.5. All right, that is it. That is the 10 books that I read in the month of June. So as you can tell, I read some adult, I read some mystery, I read some adventure books, I read some children's books, I read adult books. I had it all. And I can't wait for the month of July because I feel like it's going to be a pretty good month for reading as well. I'm also participating in a few readathons in July, which I'm super pumped and excited about. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me today. Please subscribe to my channel if you like some of the books that I read. If you didn't, that's okay too. And I'd love to know some books that you read in the month of June, or if you've read any of the books that I've read. Did you like them? Did you dislike them? Do you have the same problems that I did with some books? Did you like the books that anyways, I'd love to converse with you and get to hang out and become booktube buddies. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye.